The noisy marketplace suddenly became unbearably quiet inside Solomon's mind. Everything around him continued moving as though nothing unusual had happened. Women bargained over baskets of vegetables. Children chased one another barefoot across the dusty road. Blacksmiths hammered glowing pieces of iron. Goats wandered between market stalls. Somewhere nearby, a drummer beat a steady rhythm while traders shouted over each other, trying to attract customers. Yet Solomon heard none of it. His fingers searched every pocket on his body for the 10th time. Nothing. No blue pill. No red pill. His breathing became uneven. No. He searched again. Nothing. He untied the small leather pouch hanging from his waist. Empty. His knees suddenly became weak. I used all of them. The yam seller frowned. Young man, are you buying or not? Solomon slowly looked at him. His lips trembled. I need to go home. The man laughed. Then go home. I can't. Who is stopping you? Solomon opened his mouth, but immediately closed it again. How exactly was he supposed to explain that his home was 200 years in the future? Nobody would believe such madness. The yam seller shook his head. You must have spent too much time under the sun. He turned his attention to another customer. Solomon slowly walked away. Every step felt heavier than the previous one. His heartbeat echoed inside his ears. 200 years. 200 years. 200 years. The words repeated themselves over and over. He eventually found a quiet tree outside the market and sat beneath it. His hands covered his face. For the first time since winning Mr. Wealth's competition, Solomon cried. Not because he had lost money. Not because someone had insulted him. Not because life was difficult. But because he had lost everything. His mansion. His television. His clothes. His bed. Yanada. Even electricity. Everything was gone. His eyes became red. What am I going to do? He remembered Yanada promising to visit him that morning. She would probably arrive at the mansion. She would search every room. She would find nobody. Maybe she would think he had gone out. She would wait. Hours would pass. Days. Weeks. She would never know where he disappeared. The thought hurt him more than anything else. She had believed in him. She had helped him. Now she would probably think something terrible had happened. Solomon wiped away his tears. Crying would solve nothing. His father used to tell him something whenever work became difficult. A man who cries over broken bricks will never finish building the house. He took a deep breath. I have to think. If he was truly trapped in 1826, then survival came first. Only after surviving could he think about becoming rich. He stood up and looked around carefully. For the first time, instead of seeing confusion, he began observing details. The houses were made from mud. Roofs were covered with dried grass. Clay pots sat outside nearly every building. Nobody wore shoes made from rubber. No bicycles. No motorcycles. No vehicles. Transportation meant walking. Immediately, another realization struck him. If there were no machines, then every single job depended on human labor, just like bricklaying, his old profession. Perhaps that skill could save him. His stomach growled. Only then did Solomon realize he had eaten nothing since waking inside the mansion. Or perhaps, yesterday? Time itself no longer made sense. He returned toward the market. Food first. Plans later. Unfortunately, plans required money. He had none. Absolutely none. He stopped beside a woman roasting plantains. The smell nearly drove him insane. The woman smiled. Would you like one? Yes. She held out her hand. 3 cowries. Cowries. Of course. Money in this era. Solomon smiled awkwardly. I forgot my money. The smile disappeared from her face. Then why are you standing here? I'm hungry. So is everyone. She turned away. Next customer. Solomon walked off again. His stomach growled louder. He couldn't blame the woman. Even in 2026, nobody gave strangers free food. By late afternoon, exhaustion finally defeated him. He sat beside a narrow river watching women fill clay pots with water. One elderly man quietly approached and sat beside him. Unlike everyone else, The old man did not ask questions. They simply watched the flowing water together. After several minutes, the old man finally spoke. "You are not from here." Solomon hesitated.
"No."
"I thought so. You can tell? You look at things." "What do you mean?" "People born here do not look around so much. They simply live." The old man's observation surprised Solomon. "You notice many things." The old man smiled. Age teaches observation. After another long silence, he asked, "Have you eaten today?" Solomon lowered his eyes.
"No."
Without another word, the old man opened a woven basket. Inside sat 2 roasted yams. He handed one to Solomon.
"Eat."
Solomon stared. "You don't even know me." Hunger introduces people faster than names. For several seconds, Solomon could not speak. Finally, he accepted it. "Thank you." He ate slowly. It was the sweetest yam he had ever tasted. Not because of seasoning, because it arrived when he needed it most. "My name is Baba Ade." "Solomon." The old man nodded. "You have strong hands. I worked construction." "What is construction?" Solomon corrected himself. "I build houses."
"Ah."
The old man smiled. "A builder." "Yes." "Good." Solomon frowned. "Why good?" "Our village needs builders." Hope quietly entered Solomon's heart. "You need workers?" "We need someone who knows more than stacking mud." Solomon became interested. "What happened?" The old man pointed towards several cracked buildings. "The rains finally returned after one terrible year. I heard. The drought weakened the earth. Now many homes collapse." Solomon stood. "Can I see?" The old man led him through the village.
"I need."
Nearly every damaged house suffered from the same mistake. Poor foundations. Walls built directly on loose soil. Weak support beams. No proper drainage. As a bricklayer, Solomon immediately recognized dozens of structural problems. Modern engineering was far ahead of this. Not skyscraper knowledge. Basic construction principles. Compacting soil. Foundation trenches. Weight distribution. Simple ideas. Ideas worth fortunes here. He touched one broken wall. This didn't have to fall. The villagers nearby laughed. "And how would you stop rain?" Solomon shook his head. "I wouldn't stop rain." He pointed at the foundation. "I would stop this." They looked confused. He grabbed a stick. Using the dirt as his drawing board, Solomon began sketching. He drew deeper foundations. Stone packing. Support corners. Water channels. At first, everyone simply watched. Then more villagers gathered. Soon, nearly 20 people surrounded him. One young man interrupted. "Why dig deeper?" "So, the building carries weight better." Another asked, "What if water enters?" "That is why you make drainage." An elderly woman looked amazed. "Nobody here builds like that." Solomon smiled. "Then maybe they should." Silence spread across the crowd. Baba Ade slowly looked at Solomon differently now. Not as a hungry traveler, as someone valuable. That evening the village chief requested to meet him. The chief lived inside the largest compound. Unlike the others, his home stood on higher ground. Smarter location. Still poorly built. The chief studied Solomon carefully. "I hear you claim our builders are wrong." Solomon quickly bowed. "I meant no disrespect." "Then explain." Solomon once again drew on the ground. Patiently. Step by step. Using sticks. Stones.
Mud.
Even children understood. The chief asked dozens of questions. Solomon answered each one. Finally, the chief stood. "Can you build this way?" "Yes." "Can you teach others?" "Yes." The chief smiled. "Then perhaps the spirits sent you." Solomon forced a smile. If only they knew the truth. That night Solomon received a sleeping mat inside Baba Ade's compound. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't even a room. But after the terrifying day he had experienced, it felt like luxury. He lay staring at the stars. Without city lights, the night sky looked endless. He whispered softly, "Mr. Wealth." His voice faded. "So, this was your secret." He finally understood. The pills had never been about magic money. They had been about opportunity, knowledge, perspective, time itself. Money disappears. Gold can be stolen. Businesses fail. But knowledge travels anywhere, even across centuries. He remembered something Mr. Wealth had once said during the competition. The richest person is not the one with the most money. It is the one whose mind creates money wherever it goes. Back then, Solomon had not understood.
Now,
Lying beneath unfamiliar stars 200 years in the past, those words finally made sense. He had arrived with empty pockets. But perhaps, just perhaps, he was carrying something more valuable than billions. An education the 19th century had never seen. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would begin again. Not as a poor bricklayer. Not as a stranded traveler. But as a man whose greatest investment was the knowledge inside his own mind. Far away, beyond the sleeping village, thunder rolled across the night sky. A new season was coming. And with it, the first step toward Solomon's impossible fortune. The rooster crowed long before sunrise. Solomon opened his eyes almost immediately. For a brief moment he smiled. Then reality struck. He was still here. No mansion. No electricity. No mobile phone.
no Yanada.
Only a woven mat, a mud hut, and the cool morning breeze flowing through the open doorway. He let out a long sigh. So, it wasn't a dream after all. Outside, he could already hear movement. Women were grinding grains with heavy stone mortars. Children were chasing chickens around the compound. Men sharpened farming tools before heading to their fields. The village woke much earlier than the city he had known. There was no electricity to keep people awake late into the night. Life simply followed the rhythm of the sun. Baba Ade appeared at the doorway carrying a wooden bowl. "You are awake. I don't think I even slept much." The old man chuckled. "You'll get used to it." He handed Solomon the bowl. Inside was warm millet porridge. Solomon accepted it gratefully. "Thank you. Eat quickly."
Why?
"The chief wants to see the builder." "The builder?" "You." The words still sounded strange. Yesterday, he had been a confused traveler. Today, the entire village seemed to think he was some sort of master craftsman. After eating, Solomon washed the bowl and followed Baba Ade toward the chief's compound. People greeted him as they passed. "Good morning. The builder is here." "That is the young man. He's the one who knows how to stop houses from collapsing." Solomon smiled awkwardly. "They're talking about me already?" Baba Ade laughed. "In villages, news travels faster than birds." The chief was already waiting beneath a giant Irako tree. Several elders sat beside him. A pile of stones and wooden poles lay nearby. The chief pointed toward them. "Show us." Solomon nodded. He spent nearly an hour explaining the importance of digging proper foundations before placing walls. He demonstrated how to compact loose soil. He explained why corners should be reinforced. He showed them how rainwater should be directed away from houses instead of allowing it to collect beside walls. The villagers watched every movement carefully. Some whispered among themselves. Others copied his drawings into the dirt. One elderly builder suddenly interrupted. "I have built houses for 30 years. Solomon respectfully bowed his head. "I believe you. So, are you saying I have been doing it wrongly?" The crowd became silent. Everyone waited for Solomon's answer. He knew this moment was dangerous. If he embarrassed the old builder, the entire village might reject him. He smiled.
No.
The old man frowned. "No. You built with the knowledge available to you." The elder's expression softened slightly. "But every generation learns something new." He picked up 2 sticks. "If your father taught you to farm with 1 stick, and later someone invented a hoe, would your father become a foolish man?" The elder slowly shook his head.
No.
He simply lived before the hoe existed. The old builder stared at Solomon for several moments. Then, he smiled. "You speak wisely." The tension disappeared instantly. The other elders nodded in approval. The chief stood. "From today, the rebuilding of every damaged house begins." He looked directly at Solomon. "You will supervise the work." Solomon blinked. "Me? Yes. I don't even belong here. You do now." Construction began that same morning. Solomon divided the workers into groups. Instead of allowing everyone to perform random tasks, he assigned responsibilities. Some dug trenches. Others gathered stones. Another group mixed clay. A separate team transported water. The villagers were confused. Why separate everyone? Solomon smiled. It is faster. Nobody believed him. Until midday. Normally, one house required several days before the foundation was ready. This time, 3 foundations were completed before sunset. The workers looked at each other in disbelief.
How?
It felt easier. We even finished earlier. Solomon couldn't help laughing. That is called organization. They had never heard the word used that way. By evening, the chief returned to inspect the progress. His eyes widened. So much. He walked around each foundation carefully. He stamped the compacted soil. He nodded repeatedly. This is strong. One elder whispered, I have never seen work move this quickly. The chief turned toward Solomon. What do you need? Solomon hesitated. The answer came immediately. Workers should be fed during the day. The chief looked surprised. You ask for food? If people are hungry, they become tired. If they become tired, they work slowly. Several elders exchanged confused looks. Nobody had ever thought about feeding workers during construction. It simply wasn't done. The chief considered it carefully, then nodded. So be it. The following day, food was prepared for everyone working on the rebuilding effort. The result amazed the village. People worked longer. Complaints decreased. Arguments disappeared. By sunset, they had accomplished nearly twice the previous day's work. The chief couldn't stop smiling. His ideas keep multiplying. Within a week, neighboring villages began hearing strange stories. A young builder has appeared. He builds houses that do not crack. He organizes workers like soldiers. He finishes work in half the time. Most dismissed the rumors, until they came to see for themselves. Visitors arrived daily. Builders from distant settlements quietly observed Solomon's methods. Some copied his techniques. Others asked questions. Solomon answered everyone. He never hid knowledge. He remembered something Yanada once told him. Knowledge grows when it is shared. The memory made him smile sadly. He wondered what she was doing in 2026. Was she still searching for him? Or had everyone assumed he had vanished forever? He pushed the thought away. Thinking about home only made the loneliness worse. One afternoon, while supervising workers, Solomon noticed a group of boys struggling to lift massive stones. He walked over. Stop. They froze. What? You'll injure yourselves. We have to move them. Not like this. He searched the area. Nearby lay several thick tree branches. An idea immediately formed. He placed the branches beneath one of the heavy stones. Then pushed. The stone rolled forward effortlessly. The boys stared in amazement. Again. He repositioned the branches. The stone rolled even farther. One boy shouted, It is moving by itself. The workers abandoned their tasks and gathered around. Within minutes, everyone was experimenting with rolling heavy stones across wooden poles. Work that previously required 12 men could now be done by 4. The village erupted with excitement. It is magic.
No.
Solomon laughed. It is simple physics. What is physics?
He paused.
Understanding how things move. They nodded, although most clearly didn't understand. Still, the technique spread instantly. By sunset, every construction site in the village had adopted it. That evening, the chief called another meeting. This time his expression was serious. He held a small leather bag. He placed it before Solomon. For your work. Solomon opened it. Inside were dozens of shiny cowrie shells. He looked up. I can't accept this. The chief frowned. Why? You have already given me food and a place to stay. And you have saved us months of labor. The chief folded Solomon's fingers around the bag. A worker deserves payment. For the first time since arriving in 1826, Solomon possessed money. Not much, but enough. He smiled. Thank you. Baba Ade leaned toward him. You are smiling. I finally have something. The old man grinned. You earned it. Over the next few days, Solomon carefully observed how people traded. Cowries,
Salt. Palm oil.
livestock, iron tools. Everything had value. Nothing was wasted. One afternoon, he wandered through the market again, this time as a paying customer. He bought roasted plantains from the same woman who had rejected him days earlier. She stared at him. You. He laughed. Yes. You found money. I found work. She smiled warmly. Then today you eat. As she handed him the food, Solomon noticed something interesting. People constantly argued over measurements. One trader claimed a basket was full. The buyer disagreed. Another insisted a bag contained more grain than another. Arguments broke out everywhere. There were no standard measurements. Everything depended on trust or deception. Solomon watched quietly. An idea slowly began forming inside his mind. A very interesting idea. Perhaps, just perhaps, his road to wealth would not begin with construction after all. It would begin with solving problems that everyone else accepted as normal. The wealthiest people of every age had one thing in common. They found inefficiencies. Then they fixed them. As he walked back toward the village carrying his plantains, a horse suddenly galloped into the marketplace. Everyone stepped aside. The rider wore expensive robes unlike anything Solomon had seen since arriving. The man surveyed the crowd before speaking loudly. I am looking for the young builder everyone keeps talking about. Silence fell. Dozens of people slowly turned toward Solomon. The rider followed their gaze. Their eyes met. The stranger smiled. So, I finally found you.